Hello, thanks again for joining me at Bert's Books. I'm just going to ramble a bit about, excuse me, the things I've picked up in the last couple of weeks, which it's not been many, but it's been, weirdly, not intentionally, but it's just happened that way. It's been a bit of a gangster paradise. So first off, I think this might even be a dupe. I think I might have a different imprint of this, but this is the original Express edition of Victor Headley's sequel to Yardie, which has more recently famously been filmed. This was the follow-up, Excess. I think this dates from 1993. Now I've already done a video concerning the original book. The sequels, I don't know how strictly necessary they were, but on the success, the weird out of nowhere success of the first book, I suppose almost inevitable that I think there were two sequels, this and I think the one after it was called Yush. I read them all at the time, but I don't really remember much about Yush at all, but this one I've got a little way into it now. As I think I mentioned in my video on Yardie, the book has its appeal. It kind of in a way reprises the pulpy dynamic of those 70s kind of youth cult books, but my feeling revisiting the original, as I did for, I forget when I filmed that, probably 3 years ago, something like that. I think there's an art to a gangster story in that, as horrible as the characters in it are capable of being, and the horrible acts they're capable of doing, you have to kind of keep a reader in some way sympathetic. I think that was the great art to the Sopranos, that, all the fucking dreadful things that Tony and the people around him do, there's enough, they sort of inject it with enough, they allow them enough personality and charm that you kind of hang in there with them in the hope that, I suppose, that they would kind of redeem themselves in some way, and the viewer or the reader is constantly kind of on tenterhooks, just kind of, which way is this going to go? Are they just going to go be awful, or will they kind of will their self-awareness reach a level that they're able to kind of step away from these dreadful deeds, or gain enough inside knowledge about themselves that, at risk of sounding like a moralising arsehole, perhaps lead better lives than they've been leading. Yardie kind of lost me at a point as far as empathising in any way with the central character D, because it's at the point, I think, that he does that thing with that woman. I'm not even sure if it happens in the film. I've still not seen the film. But there's a point in the book where he commits an act where you kind of internally step away from the character, and your empathy just gives up the ghost. So I kind of have already written D off, but already at the start of this. I'm part way through rereading it. I've not probably read it since the 90s. So yeah, I think at the time, I did kind of blaze through these books, but I'm sort of going through it slowly again. It still has that kind of pacing and that energy about it that's quite appealing, but kind of stopped rooting for D. His limited charm is by now lost on me. That said, these are a kind of in that sort of pulpy way, an easy read. As not all, aspects of them, I would say, haven't aged well. I'm not even sure they were that good a look at the time. There's this passage quite early in this where one of the characters in this is this school kid he's about 14, and he's getting trouble at school, and his mum and his uncle, they're called in for a talk at the school to do with the fact that the kid has homophobically abused a teacher who was giving them a session on inclusiveness, and I don't know, the way it's handled in this didn't really charm me, I have to say, but it's gangster fiction. It's not going to tread lightly, so it's not a comfortable world that it's describing here. So I'm probably going to persist with it. I don't know if I'm going to make it onto Yush this time around, but not a bad find, I suppose. Excuse me. And within minutes of finding that, I also managed to pick up a copy of this, which I never even realised. However many times I've seen the film, I would need two hands to count how many times I've seen the film, but I never realised it was a book. So yeah, this is kind of a surprise to me. Now, Goodfellas is one of those films that I would say transcends the genre. What I mean is, you don't need to really be... I mean, I'm not sure I'm into gangster films particularly, but it was one of those films that you didn't really need to be a gangster film aficionado. It just kind of works, as a sort of universal, almost universally appealing story. Book, yeah, like I say, a bit of an unknown to me. I've only really got into the first pages by this point. Now, it's by, I'm not sure if you pronounce that with a soft G, was it Nicholas Pileggi? Or Pileggi? I'm guessing it's Pileggi, but again, he's an author I'm not aware of. But according to the foreword, he was long experienced in documenting antics of mafiosi and wise guys in the States. So when he took this project on, it wasn't a new one on him. However, he points out that in contrast to what he describes as the I think what's the expression? The egomaniac ramblings, I think is what he says, of his usual kind of exchanges with interviewee former gangsters. Henry Hill was quite a different proposition to your run-of-the-mill hoodlum. So I've quite high hopes for this. If it's anything as good as the film, then can't be bad at all. Now, I thought joked when picking it up, I'm only buying this for the recipes. I remember the story as being highly... I don't know how true this is of that sort of the culture it's describing, but highly preoccupied with food, right, to the extent that, when you watch the film, and similarly I suppose with the Sopranos, which arguably this, you might say this paved the way for the Sopranos, presenting this gangster story where you're kind of invited to empathise to a certain extent with the main guy in it. He's not a two-dimensional kind of hard nut, and I suppose the general feel and aesthetic of it maybe was carried on into the Sopranos. I know it has actors in common. There's more than one actor common to both the film and the series of the Sopranos. But anyway, I'm rambling away and losing the point. Food. I mean, I thought, I think even the first time I watched Goodfellas, I kind of felt, even given the dangerous nature of the lives these guys are living, how far they could expect to survive past 40 on the diet they seem to indulge in. At what point the quadruple bypass becomes necessary. But there's that constant theme to it of stuffing your face with high carbohydrate, but anyway, at the same time quite tasty, I'm sure. Anyway, I still haven't to this day experimented with slicing garlic with a razor blade, because I only use too squeamish for those traditional razor blades. I only use a little, those things. But anyway, I've quite high hopes for this. It's just total surprise to me that there even was a book of it. So we'll see how I get on. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and catch up soon.